So, every year in June, I make a list of my top 10 movies of the year so far. But this year, because of the pandemic, that was a hard list to make, as you saw as that video went up earlier today. But I was thinking about it, while I was making that video, I was like, wow, this was so hard. There was just so few movies this year to date because of the pandemic. And then I thought, well, what was I covering? And I thought, well, I covered so much streaming. I mean, I've always covered streaming, but there's really a transition taking place. I don't think we're leaving movies behind, but I think that streaming is moving up, I have to say, to the same level, especially because their game is so strong. So I thought I should make a list of the top 10 shows for the year so far. And here it is. And I gotta tell you, it was really hard to make, really hard to make. I barely could get 10 movies together for the movies list. Here I had to leave shows off, shows that I really wanted to include, like The Bad Batch. It's picking up speed. I mean, it was pretty bad in the beginning, in my opinion. I know some of you loved it from the get-go, but the last 2 episodes, I haven't watched today's yet, but things are happening. You should be on that show, and it's only halfway through the season. Love Victor Season 2, loved it, so good. Wish I could have included it here. And then Jupiter's Legacy. I had to take a show off at the last minute. Jupiter's Legacy was actually on this list, but I wanted to include Hacks because I love that show so much. And I wanted to have a diverse list here. So I had to take Jupiter's Legacy off, and it hurt because I loved it so much. But that show doesn't have a future, unfortunately, because it was canceled cruelly, inexplicably. So I took it off. But I kind of snuck those shows in anyway by mentioning them just now. All right, so here's my list, and I'm very excited to hear your lists down below, particularly the top of them, your top 5, because it's real hard to pick out the rankings there. You're going to see. You got to make some tough choices. All right, number 10, Halston. Halston is broad, bold strokes, like the minimalist styling of Halston himself. And it's a tour de force performance by Ewan McGregor. Wow, that guy, we've always loved him, but with this and Obi-Wan, I mean, he's really having a comeback. Although not many people watched Halston, unfortunately. It was only in the Nielsen top 10 for 1 week. And I know a lot more people are going to watch Obi-Wan, but you should watch Halston. I was actually moved to tears by the final episode, and it surprised me because I had loved the trailer so much and I was disappointed that the episodes didn't have the same energy as the trailer, but it works because, wow, was I bowled over by the end of it. And it's short, it's only 5 episodes. This, as I said in my review, it's Mad Men meets The Boys in the Band, 2 great pieces of entertainment themselves. And I'm really glad that I watched it. I mean, that the most famous designer in the world, no understatement there, who was a pioneer in the fashion industry, changed it forever. And many fashion designers today who are brands are walking in the path that Halston forged. But that most people have forgotten about him, I mean, talk about an incredible story. A warning, I think, to many creatives who want to be in business. Very good stuff. All right, number 9, Shadow and Bone. Some of you are going to be surprised that some of these are so low down, but that's how competitive this list is. What this show is able to accomplish in just 8 episodes is so impressive. It has a huge cast of characters to introduce, lots of world building to do, an entire mythology to explain. And I often am like, you're ripping off Avatar, you're ripping off Avatar, you're ripping off Avatar. And they were kind of ripping off Avatar here, but I felt they got away with it. I was like, I'll allow it. I thought it was great. I think it really accomplished everything. It really took off. It's great. I mean, we were on pins and needles for weeks about whether or not it would get a second season, especially after what happened with Jupiter's Legacy. But whew, it got one. So I'm so happy. And I'm hoping with the second season, it becomes as popular as Umbrella Academy, which I think it deserves to do. Very strong. This is one of the downsides of Netflix debuting their shows to binge, because the conversation doesn't happen week to week like other services are finding out is so advantageous. I mean, imagine if Shadow and Bone was every week. Maybe it would have built up its audience more. Its audience is pretty good, though. The entire cast is fantastic. A lot of discovery of new talent here. But Ben Barnes, who got his first big break way back in 2008, and then it didn't work out, and he kept getting opportunities, but they didn't work out either. But he stuck with it. Good for him, because he finally got his signature role, and he is absolutely amazing on this show. Number 8, Sweet Tooth. I never would have guessed it would have been this low down on the list. All these things, considering how much I enjoyed them. But Sweet Tooth, we're waiting on a season 2 announcement here as well. Will it be like Shadow and Bone and get renewed? Or like Jupiter's Legacy and get inexplicably canceled? I thought it was great. This comic book adaptation it's quirky like the source material, but it adds a level of mainstream charmingness to it that makes it, I think, very accessible family entertainment. Yet it's still you're like really well done post-apocalyptic story. And it doesn't look like that either. It has this wonderful, celebration of nature about it, which is very unusual, not just for like a post-apocalyptic story, but just for Hollywood in general. And it's set in the American West. It feels really unique. It's like a camping catalog brought to life. And I don't even like camping, but I like the show. And also, while it's very sweet, like the title suggests, I respect its willingness to go very dark, especially towards the end of season 1. Such a good show. All right, number 7, The Mosquito Coast. That's right, it's above those other shows. You should try it. Now, I didn't want to try it either. This show was recommended to me by several people, and I still dragged my feet watching it. I was like, I don't like Justin Theroux. It doesn't look very good to me, and I didn't like the Harrison Ford movie. Well, just like with The Bad Batch, boy, am I glad that one day I needed something to watch with my dinner, because that's how I got back into The Bad Batch, because I reviewed the beginning of it. And it's how I got into The Mosquito Coast. And again, The Bad Batch almost made this list. And again, as I said, I've never liked Justin Theroux, but now I love the guy. Sorry, Jennifer Aniston. I was on Team Aniston in that one, but I'm like, he's very talented. And he's not only talented in front of the camera, but behind the camera, because as luck would have it, his uncle is actually the one who wrote The Mosquito Coast, the original book. So Justin Theroux executive produced this, and he helped evolve the original book into something that's, I think, very modern and very unique. Now it's a couple that has committed a mysterious crime that has them on the run from the U.S. government, but the catch is they're also parents and they don't want to give up their kids. It's actually a lot like Ozark, which never occurred to me while I was watching the show, but I totally thought of that while I was doing this, my notes for this, and I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. And I love Ozark, and I love this. If you like Ozark, you'll probably love this too. I also really like the show's commentary on economic policies and global politics. I think they handle it in a very sophisticated manner. And even though I don't always agree with what they're saying, I think they make really strong points. This show also totally changed how I feel about director Rupert Wyatt. I was like, woo, he was a flash in the pan with the first Apes movie. But now I'm like, wow, he actually was talented and just got some bad breaks, because he directed the heck out of the first 2 episodes of this show. And he's also one of the executive producers. Number 6, here's Hacks. Jupiter's Legacy wasn't going to be this high up, actually, but I wanted Hacks to be this high. I think it's fantastic. What a hidden gem, which I hope becomes less hidden by my sharing it here and talking it up, and hopefully more and more people getting HBO Max. Now, we all know Jean Smart is a national treasure, but Hannah Einbinder, daughter of SNL's Lorraine Newman, matches her joke for joke and is the perfect yin to Smart's yang. Also, Einbinder is playing a character that I think with a lot of other actresses would have been very unlikable, and she does a lot of crazy, weird stuff that you shouldn't like, but Einbinder just makes her so charming, and she just really, pulls you in. Not only is Hacks another great story about the realities of working in show business, we love that stuff, and it does it so well. It's one of the most accurate I've seen. It really captures Hollywood today. They even reference Kevin Feige in one of the episodes. But it's also specifically telling what it's like for women in show business. And it gets that right, too, with scary accuracy. But don't worry, this isn't a preachy show. It is so funny. It's so clever. It's surprising. So surprising. It reminds me a little bit of Glow, too, if you liked Glow. And that's scary to me as well, because Glow got canceled eventually. But that was partially the pandemic's fault. but you will love this show. It's so good. And good news is that I hear Hollywood loves it too. A lot of the people I know in the industry are like, they just talk about it all the time. We were all like talking to each other. We're like, have you seen Hacks? And you're like, yes, I did start watching Hacks. And we're like, it's amazing. Why is no one talking about this show? But the fact that the industry likes it so much leads me to believe that when an award season comes around again, just like Apple TV finally got a hit with Ted Lasso, like an official hit with Ted Lasso, because that started winning a lot of awards, I think Hacks will get the same kind of validation. So good. So good. All right, now it's going to be tough. Get ready. These are all very close, and I had to make some tough choices, so please understand. And I think before you lose your temper with me, just try and make the list yourself, and I think you'll see how difficult this really is. All right, number 5, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's right, that's how tough this is. That is an incredible show, not just for expanding the world of Captain America like never before. And I mean, from when the Winter Soldier stage, like the Captain America movies kind of became like, you know, the third I didn't like the first Captain America movie. I know some of you love it, but I loved Winter Soldier. And then the third one was basically like an Avengers mini movie. But this was so great to see more of that, and to really, you know, we're kind of getting a feel for what, you know, Thor movies are like. It's great. But they also evolved the world of Captain America, now Sam Wilson's world, into one where he wasn't just given the mantle, but he comes to accept it. See, with Steve's kind and important gesture in Endgame, what Steve didn't realize was exactly what he was asking of Sam, something that he couldn't understand because he hadn't had Sam's experiences. Just like Sam felt talked about the same thing with Isaiah. I think that was really important. And they also talked about, you know, Bucky talked about how he and Steve didn't know what Sam was going through. So this show takes both Sam and us, that's so important, on a journey of understanding how Sam can get to a place where he can accept the mantle on his terms and with his own goals set. It's fantastic. And speaking of sophisticated storylines, there was also Bucky's path of redemption and his own self-acceptance, as well as John Walker's very complex situation. That Marvel did make him a clear-cut villain, which they easily could have done, by the way, is amazing and ambitious for a franchise that to date has always played things very safe. Plus, this show did a great job of building on and expanding the MCU and felt the most so far like a traditional, that's important, keep that in mind for the rest of this list, a traditional MCU movie, the formula that has made them the top franchise in the world by a mile. Now, number 4, Castlevania Season 4. That's right, Castlevania enters the world of my coverage. Thank you so much to everyone who insisted that I watch this show. And I finally did it because they have a new spin-off coming up, a sequel of sorts, and I want to cover that, so I was like, I better watch Castlevania. And again, I needed something to watch. And boy, am I glad I watched this. I watched all 4 seasons, but since season 4 came out this year, it qualifies for this list and allows me to talk it up. So this, I would say, is up there with Invincible. That's right, in terms of matching, if not surpassing, its live-action equivalent. Now, in this case, instead of superheroes, it's vampires, night creatures, and the church. Oh my. The action on this show is jaw-dropping. Like, they have some episodes which have a lot of talking, but they always make up for it. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing or what I just saw. And they also have fantastic character development. I'd say my favorite characters, I like all of them, but I particularly liked Trevor, Sypha, and Isaac. Loved Isaac. I don't think Isaac got enough of a wrap-up, so I hope that we see him again. And with the big final fight in episode 9, I couldn't believe how emotional I got and how moved I was about a cartoon, you know, like an action cartoon. Like, we all do that with Pixar and Disney sometimes, but like, wow, this was amazing. This got me in the feels. The animation is phenomenal quality, and the voice cast is also excellent. And to have actors like Richard Armitage and Bill Nye doing animation, Theo James, who's surprisingly good as Hector, I mean, again, the whole voice cast is good, but it's to see these actors doing animation, it's like the Invincible voice cast. This medium is evolving and very quickly, and it's exciting to see. If you decide to watch Castlevania, and I recommend that you do, but I will have to warn you, it's extremely graphic, throughout with violence and gore. So graphic. But season 3, episode 9 is, it's got 2 very graphic sex scenes intercut throughout and goes on for a very long time. And I was like, who animated this? But it was pretty steamy, but I just want you to know what you're getting into. Unfortunately, again, this specific show it can't continue because of the scandal with Warren Ellis, but I'm glad they found a way to get around that with the spin-off / sequel that they have coming up, and I can't wait. And I will definitely be covering that. All right, number 3, Invincible. That's right, it's so high up. It's higher than Falcon and Winter Soldier. I told you these were tough choices. This, as I said, is the superhero version of Castlevania. And this show doesn't hold back either. And I put it 1 spot higher than Castlevania because it was just so groundbreaking in how it plays, not just with the superhero genre, but with the original comic itself, which already played with the superhero genre. I mean, I had never read Invincible before this show, but I liked the first 3 episodes so much that I got to review that I went and I bought the entire 15-year run of the comic. And I read it in just a few weeks. I Matrix that stuff. It was fantastic. By the way, I got to interview Robert Kirkman about the show. He's the creator of this and The Walking Dead, and there's a link down below if you'd like to check that out, as well as some of my other interviews that pertain to these shows. But still, even though I read those comics and I just read them, the show still managed to surprise me, and I felt often even improved on the original comic. And also like Castlevania, Invincible has live-action, movie-level quality action and character development. And in some cases, again, I feel it even surpasses live action. Because it's animated and they can do even more for less money. Now, animation ain't cheap, but to do this in live action would be, I don't even know if a movie could afford to do it, quite frankly. And so that's something where animation, I think, might be able to pull ahead on the outside. Oh, it's exciting. Now, this was tough. Two to go. Number 2, Loki. And I'm so glad I waited to film this until after episode 4. I actually wrote most of this script earlier in the week, but Loki was lower down. Loki was like number 5 or 6, but I was like, because I thought episode 3 was weak. I really appreciated what it accomplished in terms of representation for the LGBT community. I really admired that. And I thought that I understood what it was trying to do from a structural perspective, but I thought it brought down the energy of the show. So I had it lower down, but I was like, you don't know what's coming. This episode's going to air after episode 4 drops, so you don't want to be ranking Loki low down if it doesn't deserve it. And so I'm very glad I waited, because wow, episode 4, what a return to form. I just can't believe how good it is. And it might even be number 1 by the end of the season. The only reason it's number 2, quite frankly, is that it's not done yet, and it has been a bit uneven. So I need to see how it ends before I can put it at number 1 probably. I mean, this show is not only movie level like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I think actually better than a number of Marvel movies. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is the best or some of the best Marvel movies, but I feel Loki rises even above that because not only does it have the benefit of the length to really tell an in-depth story, but I love the risks that Marvel's finally taking. That just is so fantastic to me. So I just love it. I mean, and I think it's interesting, by the way, because I also am covering Black Widow right now, that Loki and Black Widow have been waiting so long to be front and center. They have that big scene in the first Avengers movie together where she interrogates him. And what do you know? Tom Hiddleston ended up faring much better. I guess the Disney Plus shows really are becoming the way to go, especially when they operate at this level, and especially from an actor's perspective and from a character perspective. Maybe not always from a story perspective, but I don't know. I don't know what Loki's leaving for movies with how aggressive it is and how much is happening. I don't know how movies are going to compete. Although, of course, Michael Waldron, the head writer here, is going on. He's the writer of Multiverse of Madness, so I guess if anyone can top him, it's him. That's very Loki-like. Loki versus Loki. I love it. Kevin Feige has a bunch of Michael Waldron variants running around the office there. And Owen Wilson is a fantastic new character for the MCU. We all love Mobius. Oh, we love him so much. He's fantastic. Plus, Kang is coming. He might not actually show up in this show, but we can hear him now. We can, I think, in some ways even see him, and it is glorious. And yes, that leaves number 1, WandaVision. I know that's going to be a controversial choice for some of you, and a delight to many. This is the one that started it all. This is the Snow White of the MCU television experiment. I mean, nothing has been able to recapture the excitement of that week-to-week WandaVision experience. Loki episode 4 came close, though. If Loki had been like that every week, it would have already topped WandaVision. And we'll see how the rest of Loki plays out. But with WandaVision, fans united in a way that we have, I think, really never seen, really. And with the show's true crime podcast style, it got us all super invested and involved, trying to figure things out, having our own theories. I mean, it was addictive. And yes, we kept guessing Mephisto, and we didn't get everything that we'd hoped for, but we still ate real good. And Elizabeth Olsen was just a revelation. Her performance there was phenomenal. Her emotional journey, and then her power as she finally became the Scarlet Witch, that was an incredible thing to witness. And the show really evolved the two-dimensional portrayal of the Scarlet Witch in the comics, which I have to say, and I think it's partially because it was a female character, wasn't really not very good. And, it was a little demeaning. And so I'm so happy that WandaVision instead made her a genuine exploration of grief, which moved us so much, but also where her story, she has real agency in her own story. And she made choices herself and she owned them, even when she sometimes made the wrong choice. So that was just fantastic. And then her goodbye to Vision, that was like the stuff, speaking of Disney fairy tales. And it was so moving and it tied in so well to their history so far in the MCU. Who will ever forget that line, since we've said goodbye before, it stands to reason we'll say hello again. That Vision, he's always so reasonable. Oh, I loved it. That scene on every level, acting, writing, directing, VFX, it was all perfect. So that's my number one show so far. So far, we're only halfway through the year. So that's my top 10 shows of 2021 so far, and I'm so excited to hear yours down below, as well as your thoughts on my own list. Good luck ranking those top ones. It's going to be tough. I'm really curious. I think we're going to see a lot of very different lists down below. I think it's going to be fun. So share those lists, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.